Sorry, Jules, I think anybody who hasn't presented the drawings this morning needs to present them this afternoon, but if as part of the model presentation the drawings come into it, we should let that happen.
So this is my site, which was from Irene. So I'll read out my vision for now. We live in an interconnected world, so I feel that in order to create a sustainable world, we need to design the idea of cradle to cradle. So it utilizes like three main concepts, which is to make sure that our materials are used in continuous cycles through the use of like reuse and recycle. And then secondly, we have to make use of renewable energy, and thirdly, to celebrate biodiversity. So in my scheme, I'm trying to focus on the idea of biodiversity. I think it's quite similar to Odeng's concept. So I learned that all species, we need to rely on each other to create a continuous ecosystem of energy flow and a positive environment for all of us to live in. So if we are creating a better environment for ourselves, we should also not neglect like other wildlife species. So it's but what we are able to do is to leverage on their natural processes to gain energy sustainably and to use less carbon. So okay. Where is it going to? Oh, okay. So in most of our current lifestyles, we are actually kind of hoarders of energy and resources. We take in energy and we do not give back anything. So we need to realign this mindset and kind of need to adapt to this idea of borrowing and exchanging. And residents need to take more ownership about the energy that they are creating as well as the carbon that they are producing. So my idea started, I wanted to have like this, Irene developed this greenhouse system, which I kind of didn't wanted the homeless to stay below. So they are kind of relocated into this building, which was initially planned by Irene to be a food storage area. And instead, this greenhouse area, which keeps the warmth, will actually be changed to a communal dining area. So accompanying it is actually the kitchen, which is going to be on the basement of this building. And this will be a communal laundry. So technically, this kitchen, dining area, and laundry will serve the entire community. And I've decided to place it like in the basement because the earth can actually help to regulate temperatures much better. So because of the earth's thermal mass, it's able to trap heat during winter and release it to keep the place warm. So as you can see here, I came up with like this system of how we can reuse grey water and black water, because I already had these water down pipes from these areas which can be used to water the plants. And I thought about we also need to kind of utilize black water, which is wastewater from our sewage. So black water can be filtered by reeds, and then after it's filtered, it can be actually fed to it can actually help to water the plants. And actually, if we engage in this new concept of learning how to compost our waste through this idea of vermicomposting, which is using like red wigglers to decompose our waste, it can actually be compost for this garden at the back. So the idea for this garden is actually to create this, because Irene initially proposed it to be fruit trees, but I kind of further developed it into like different species of plants. So because what I learned from the past year is that the southern side is that side, so the trees kind of need to tear up towards the northern side so that they all get enough sunlight. So the lower trees are towards this side and the higher trees are towards this side. So these different types of plants actually cater to different users. For example, the oak will help to its fruits and leaves are actually supporting like biodiversity, and one thing that is useful for is because it needs to be copied frequently, which means like you need to cut the plant frequently, so the wood can actually be utilized to heat up like spaces. And like other types of trees are sources of food for the residents in the area. And when so the homeless are residing in this building, so I'm intending to give them like a job so that they need to tend the gardens. So as they tend the gardens, the process of how they do it is after they harvest the crops from the garden, they actually bring it to this area here, which they will separate into either compost or this will be like a food storage for them to sort out. So the food storage will be actually stored underground. So when food is stored underground, for it to be stored effectively, it needs to be like dark, dry, so that's why I placed it underground as well. So accompanying this building is actually a marketplace. So this part below underground is actually the food storage, so they can actually bring the food to the marketplace and sell it. So the whole community will have like fresh food from produced in the back garden. Yeah. And okay, so I already previously wanted pigeons on these roofs, which I read up about like having creating shelters for swifts. What? Oh, this. Okay, for swifts, bats, and swallows. So I realized that they all need to enter from different heights. So it's very small here, but the swifts there are some small swift boxes below the eaves of the roofs. This is because, and also that these trees here is the hawthorn trees, which actually can become food for them. So it actually kind of attracts them to this area, and then they can like nest inside these swift boxes. Yeah. And so there's another thing which I thought about. Like I was researching about if there are so many plants, how do we utilize like this energy? So I realized that there's this technology that when plants actually photosynthesize, they release excess energy into the soil. So you can kind of extract this energy. And you can see like from this image here, it produces electrons when the bacteria break down these nutrients produced from the roots of the plant. So it can, you actually require it's not very efficient at the moment. Like you need 100 meters square to provide like 3 persons energy for a year. But I think as technology develop, it might become more efficient. Yeah. And for the houses, they are generally powered by solar energy, which will heat up their hot water, and it's actually and I kind of recreated these roofs a bit because like during summer months it will get hot, so you're using like the stack effect to because the wind comes from like the southwest, so it comes like from this side. So when the wind blows, it will have this stack effect and cross ventilation that the hot air can exit from these windows here. And as well as this pot, I decided to change it from like a smoking pot to, I guess it's quite different, but it's just a place for people to like go inside, and then like there will be this kind of like small gym, like cycling equipments. Like people can generate electricity like in a more positive manner, and And oh yeah, that's the main idea. Thank you.
You did all this, didn't you? The circles.
Yeah.
So what's the concept behind the landscaping and these kind of circles everywhere?
I guess it's to generate the electricity from the soil. So it has these like different pots. Yeah. And then it's also to create like pockets of like smaller community spaces where, because this is the marketplace, so most likely there'll be quite a lot of people surrounding this area. So I decided to make this a more like urban public space.
Did I really create this building, or is this building existing
this
now?
building is existing.
And what is it now?
So now it's housing for the homeless above, but on the
not in your proposal, just current, like genuinely now. It's an office building.
It's an office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Shaheen, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really nice drawing. This is exactly what we imagined in a way. A couple of comments that I had was, and I know this was just for a single image. We asked that you get one photograph, add all the information on it. But I was just wondering, as you were presenting, it would have been so much more effective if it was the same image, started with just the model, and then the next slide would have been the same image, and then the subject that you're actually describing. So, for example, if you started describing the oak, and how the trees and the leaves compose, that would come next, and nothing else. So this sort of system and the layer of information will keep adding on as you explain. So all you have to do is press the next button to go through all the keys. And I think that will help focus the entire presentation on what you want, because for something this sophisticated, there's a lot happening, and when you show this all at once, like I get too excited. I start looking into all the things, and I lose, whatever it is that you're explaining. Now, again, this is not a negative comment. I'm just saying, because when you're putting it in a portfolio, obviously you're not going to put image by image by image. I think this is exactly what we would like to see in the book. A minor thing